Hello, good morning. Welcome to JoyNews Desk. We're coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlimli. We're on DTT because we're free to wear. Coming up this morning, after 31 years of the Constitution 1992 to set the tone for the restart of democratic rule, the debate is still raging on whether the document needs a total overhaul or reforms of major portions. We have some perspectives on this matter coming up shortly, and also take you live to the NCCE for more on the Constitution and how far we've come as a country. Meanwhile, President Akufo-Addo has been assuring Ghanaians of his intentions to ensure our democracy remains intact beyond his tenure. We have excerpts of his Constitution Day message to Ghanaians. Plus, President Akufo-Addo has been hitting hard on his main opponent in the 2020 elections, John Mahama, for not congratulating him 3 years after the 2020 elections. We have details of that and more coming up this hour. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Do stay for details. Many thanks for choosing us. It's been 31 years since Ghana ushered in the 1992 Constitution to set the tone for the restart of democratic rule following previous disruptions. It is also the day on which a new president is sworn in after every 4 years. Well, after 31 years of great service, there's been a strong push for reforms in the Constitution 1992. While some want a totally new constitution, others want review of some portions of that constitution. So what really do we need as a country? Joining me for a conversation is Dr. Foster Abuskara, who is the founder of the National Interest Movement. He's joining us via Zoom. Also on the other side is Martin Pebu, who is a constitutional lawyer, won many landmark cases. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Well, this conversation has been has been on for some time now. Of course, we are here again because we've had another year and nothing has really changed. Let me start with you, Dr. Abuskara. You've been on this case for some time now. What exactly do we need as a country? A total overhaul of the Constitution?
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year, and the same to my good colleague, Martin Pebu. I think the first thing is we have to look at this in a broader light. This is not a purely legalistic issue. It's essentially a response to our socio-political evolution as a nation. And at this time, where we are in our history, what do we actually need to take the next step forward? This is how we must look at it. It's not a technical issue about fine points in the Constitution, but more of a response to the society and the political system that we have. In saying that, I think two things are clear. One, we are all aware that democracies eventually stagnate into a duopoly, and that duopoly becomes less and less responsive and less capable of putting out the leadership that is required to respond to the contemporary times. They may have been good at a certain time, but as the political situation evolves, they get less capable of responding to it. So a new path is required, and that requires a new thinking to allow our Constitution to broaden out the democratic process and remove that barrier that the duopoly has compressed on the political system, such that new entities find it more difficult to evolve. The second thing is that you and I are very aware, part of that problem is the fact that the electoral process has been heavily monetized. So monetized that it is now beginning to eliminate certain people out of the system entirely. Yesterday I was reading somebody saying that you need upwards of almost $200,000-300,000 to contest a constituency. Who, in a lifetime, who earns that much, taking the basic minimum wages in Ghana? Some people even say that you need about 100 million to contest an election as a presidential candidate. Where are you getting that money from? And what are the consequences? So these are the issues which are current to us in our electoral system. and we have to think about them. And where the current system does not allow people to overcome these challenges, then we have to make the constitutional changes to broaden it out and allow the evolution process to move forward and overcome these constraints. We are also very much aware of the degree of willfulness that leadership can bring about in the society, to the extent where, to sustain their legacy and their political group, they can go to the extent of even reforming the structure of the society, the structure of governance, etc. We need to check these systems and ensure that any one group of people cannot come and impose a system forever and ever because they want to sustain themselves at the top of the pile and keep other people out. That is part of the systems and check systems that we need to put in place to ensure this excessiveness doesn't lead to a situation where now the pressure in the society is so much that people try to break out of it using unconventional means. That 30 years that we've invested in our country and our democracy must be utilized. Other people don't have those 30 years of democracy. That is why they resort to other unconventional means of changing their systems. We have those 30 years. Let us use those 30 years to our advantage, and let us move the frontier of progress forward. And let us check those people who are so willful that they would disrupt the entire progress of the society to meet their ends.
Mr. Kpebu, for some, review of major parts of the Constitution will be enough. If we agree that that is the way we want to go, which portions, to be precise?
Wow. Okay. So, Aisha, the 1001, we can't possibly finish within this program. But let me start, then we'll see what time allows us. So, number one, we are looking at the power of the president, the constraint in Article 78, that he must appoint a majority of the ministers from parliament. That's the first one to go. What it has created is a system where the MPs of a ruling government are usually very docile, very docile. They become malleable. Why? Because most of them are looking for ministerial appointments and also very juicy board appointments. So you see that MPs are not willing to challenge the president, because the moment you stand up to the president, then it means automatically you are not getting a ministerial appointment. You are not getting a juicy board appointment. So it's weakened that. So please, let's not take the fact that in 1979, Liman's budget was rejected as a basis. My understanding is that that's the main basis why in 1992 we said majority should come from parliament. But we've created a problem. We've created another problem. So you see why we say the more things change, the more they remain the same. In trying to solve the 79 problem that Liman's budget was rejected, which is a good thing. If the budget is not good, or you can't mobilize your people, that's the parliamentarians, and it's rejected, you will step up and do the needful. You say, so one, that is it. Then number two, you look at our economic structure. You see this borrowing and over borrowing, we need to look at it and reconfigure Article 36. You see, Aisha, under 36, you see that it says the government has a duty to feed citizens, provide livelihood for them, etc. Now, you find a situation currently, what we are in, government appointees are living in opulence. Though the president says they've cut down some of the salaries and the rest, look at the way the V8s are full. So many V8s in Accra. Meanwhile, citizens are hungry. So I expect that we should amend Article 36 to make it more biting in such a way that government expenditure is down for as long as citizens have not been fed. I'm not sure we can have all the time to read, but let me just read 36.1 so that we get the context. It says, the state shall take all necessary action to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare and happiness of every person in Ghana, and to provide adequate means of livelihood and suitable employment and public assistance to the needy. Public assistance to the needy. Aisha, look, as we are talking now, times are hard, very, very hard. Millions of our citizens are famished. They are hungry. People can't pay rent, electricity, etc. And yet you have government spending so much on appointees, paying all their bills, giving them big V8s and the rest. Why don't we cut down? So if you look at the fact that we made so much noise from the debt exchange program to so many interventions, government cut down, and yet they are not cutting down much, it tells us that the best thing to do is to add it as a constitutional amendment, cutting down these pegs. So this one ties in with the Article 71 office holders, the conditions of service. You see, because citizens are disenchanted, you find people who have hardly worked. Once they are appointed as ministers, they are given V8s, etc. Somebody who has never been able to buy a car from his previous employment. Some had mini cars, mini Coopers, etc. Some had old rickety cars. Yet as soon as they were appointed, and I'm not talking about only this administration, it's been the same from 1992. Some will even tell you that some were even riding bicycles. Please, no disrespect to bicycle riders. I used to ride a bicycle, so we are not running away from our past. But the point is that we feed these political appointees too much to the detriment of the citizenry. That is the point. So that's point number 2. Because we don't have much time, I want us to go quickly to the next point.
And so by talking about Article 36, you are talking about the Directive Principles of State Policies, right? And which includes economic, ensuring that there's a good economy, there's the political side, there's social side, and all of that. And so you want to focus on just 36. How about the others, up until 40, Article 40?
Yes, so that's why I said, because there's no time. So all of them, if you go to, I started with 78, the ministers, then I came to 36. Yes, within 36 itself, there are more things that we can do. I'm just looking at the ones that are very easy to make the point quickly. So let's say if you go to 37, the social objectives, okay?
Yep.
The state shall endeavor to secure and protect a social order founded on the ideals and principles of freedom, equality, justice, probity, and accountability, as enshrined in Chapter 5 of this Constitution, blah, blah, blah. Then it goes on, it talks about employment, right? Now, so the point is that, you see the 36 I mentioned, when we take steps to protect citizens, to give them adequate livelihoods, etc., you see it impinging on 37, because 37 talks about the social order founded on what? Equality, freedom. You see, so when you feed people, you empower them, then they can assert their other rights. It talks about participation. A man who is hungry, a man who cannot pay school fees, or when I say a man, children who cannot access education because they can't pay school fees. I'm not talking about free SHS. After free SHS, you have to continue, etc. And by the way, I support free SHS, right?
Okay.
So it's that when you do the economics, it's the foundation. It feeds into the social, cultural, and etc. because you empower the persons, you empower them. So I agree, there are a lot. That's how come I subscribe to the view that let's put all the changes together and do a new constitution, because the ones that are good in this 92 constitution, the ones that the Supreme Court has interpreted, etc., that we agree with, then we add all. Because Aisha, we will not finish. If you go to, so I've talked about the social. Now, you go to 38, the educational objectives. Yes, you see free SHS, which is good. We should be extending it to the university. I thought at a point I heard President Akufo-Addo talking about free university education. I know currently the cost is heavily subsidized. It's good. But what I'm saying is that has been the case since 1992. Government has been subsidizing. Isn't it about time we went up to make it free? And as I'm telling you, there's enough money in Ghana to give Ghanaians free university education. The politicians know it. But you see, like Kennedy Ejapon said, they are busy stealing the money and stashing it abroad. It's a corruption. You remember when President Akufo-Addo was asked, how was he going to fund free SHS? What did he say? He said, with proceeds from the fight against corruption. And Aisha, he knew what he was saying. Corruption is killing us. And it's unfortunate here Akufo-Addo came and has made it worse because he is coming now. It's even barefaced corruption, where he said corruption involves even appointing family and friends. And he has appointed his brother as finance minister, his cousins, Amwakwata, so many boards, so many companies all over. So he has come to make corruption worse. And you know his ranking, that 43 we've been getting for the past 3 years. It's the worst under John Mahama's administration. And you know, I don't support John Mahama. I'm just facing the facts. I'm for a third force. I wish we would do away with this duopoly because they are all corrupt. Let's try something new. I support TUC and the churches coming together, chief imam, etc., to get us a new candidate so that we can try something new, right? So Aisha, with this point, you see that when you tackle the economics, you empower the people, it will go up a long way. So that even this free education we are talking about under 38, it may happen that for people who are very rich, people who can afford it, they may opt to say, look, we will pay so that the poor can be subsidized. So we go on and on and on, so many provisions. And I say, hey, let me not forget my almighty provision, Article 286, fighting corruption. The current 286 is very bad. 286 clause 3. When you file your assets, 286 clause 3 says that the only time the asset declaration form will be opened is when there's a court case. 2, when there's an investigation at SHRAG against that public appointee. And then 3, when there's a commission of inquiry. That's not good. We've been fighting. You see Samson Ladiayenini, he started his fight long ago, and then I came to join. Samson, God bless your soul for it. Let's do this, that we amend the Constitution to make sure that when a public officer files his assets, we can all access the asset declaration that he has filed. Yes. And in the meantime, you know, even President Akufo-Addo has been running away from it. We're lucky that the IMF brought it back. That's the Code of Conduct of Public Officers. The IMF reinstated it as an IMF conditionality. But I say Akufo-Addo is very slow on it. That's the number one law we have to pass. That public officers, especially as Kennedy Ejapon warned us that they are stealing our money, stealing and stashing abroad. We should amend it so that when you file your assets, everybody can see. Then when somebody is in Boko, somebody is in Bolga, somebody is in Sandema, etc., the person can access it on the net. Of course, it should be published on the net. So that if he sees that, this minister, he says he has 3 houses, X, Y, Z. But a young guy in Bolga has been seeing him in another house or several other houses, ABC. Then a young guy can report. He can lay a complaint that apart from X, Y, Z, that Minister Aisha Ibrahim has put in the form, I've also been seeing him in these various houses, ABC. Can we find out? You see, so that we can fight corruption. It's not the only tool, but once again, like I said, because of time, you know, we have to. There are 1,001 other provisions. Do we still have more time?
Yes, we do, but I want us to briefly go to the National Commission for Civic Education, where there is a presser briefing us on where we have come. How far we've come since the Constitution 1992 was adopted.
Use it in favor of those who have and those who can raise money. thus excluding significant number of otherwise well-qualified citizens from contesting for political leadership. Again, in a situation like ours, where regulations around money in politics are either non-existent, too weak, or too poorly enforced, we stand the risk of attracting very dark and bad money into the political system. According to a recent study by CDD Ghana titled Understanding How Dirty Money Fuels Campaign Financing in Ghana, we know that the current cost of running for office as a member of parliament is approximately $700,000. $700,000. This is what the research by CDD found. That is how much it costs to organize oneself and try to run for office as an MP. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, $700,000 to become an MP, a job that definitely does not pay enough to recoup that money. The bulk of that money, by the way, goes to fund direct cash transfers to residents of constituencies, to citizens who have decided that that is more important than the vote that is in their hands. We are guilty of making extreme financial demands on those who offer themselves for public office. And then we get angry and disappointed when they are unable to deliver the public goods we expect. We are at a point where a major criteria for getting elected into public office is the candidate's ability to dole out cash to voters. It is time to own up to this terrible practice and commit to ending it. If we don't end it, it will end us. When we make the mistake of only electing those who distribute cash, gifts, and so on and so forth, we run the risk of exposing ourselves to dark and dirty money readily available in the world. And we will sell our country to forces we cannot even begin to imagine. Forces that will seize control either through existing structures or come through new structures that will declare themselves the Messiah. Fellow citizens, we must all be interested in how politics is financed in this country. We've talked about this issue enough. We see the impact. We see how it is destroying the democracy and the very fabric of society. It's time to stop talking or keep talking, but also do something about it. It is an unsustainable way to actually run a democracy, to have it this way where it is only money and money alone, for the most part, that guarantees access to public office. Remember, when you sell your vote, you compromise your conscience and betray your country. Studies show that vote buying and selling fuels corruption, undermines the principles of democracy, and denies competent candidates who maybe can actually make a difference for the common good, deny them a chance. The other key thing that I want us to focus on and not lose sight of is the role of the media as we head into the election season, particularly when it comes to issues of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. In this election year, as all other election years, the media is expected to play its important watchdog role. Chapter 12 of the 1992 Constitution is titled Freedom and Independence of the Media. Articles 162 and 163 outline the broad and liberal freedoms that ensure we will never again go back to the dark days of the culture of silence. Article 165 reinforces media freedoms by reiterating that media freedoms are additional to the fundamental human rights of all Ghanaians, as spelled out in Chapter 5 of the same Chapter 5 of the same Constitution. However, Article 164 provides that media freedoms and independence is subject to laws that are in the interest of national security, public order, public morality, and also in for the purpose of protecting reputations of citizens, their rights and interests of other persons. Fellow citizens, the vibrant liberal media terrain we enjoy today is the result of struggle and sacrifice. People died so we can freely express our opinions today. Let us be constantly reminded of this fact so we don't take what we have for granted. Looking at the media landscape today, one wonders if media houses and practitioners regularly refresh their memories on Chapter 5 of the Constitution that is dedicated to them. I wonder because today it seems to me and to a lot of other observers that any shady character, especially one with financial resources to splurge, is welcomed with open arms by some media houses and given unfettered access to the airwaves. Today, it is rare to find high-quality, development-oriented discussions in the media. And of those that we can find, many have a clear partisan slant. Media houses, especially during the political season, should not allow misinformation, hate speech, personal attacks, highly divisive and provocative utterances, and sometimes extreme vituperation to be broadcast on their channels, as this leads to heightened tensions. We forget the power of the media and the example of the Rwanda genocide. Please, Ghana media, wield the power of media for good, for progress, and for elevated, development-oriented discourse. Of course, we cannot speak of spread of fake news, misinformation and disinformation, intemperate language and divisiveness without bringing up social media. By January 2023, internet penetration in Ghana is around 68%, with nearly 9 million users. If as a country and as a people, we were harnessing social media for personal advancement and public good, we will see a period of rapid growth and progress. Yet social media is rather used for every negative thing imaginable.
So you have Kathleen Ade, who is director of the National Commission for Civic Education. She's been hitting on some very key points that we need to actually deal with in the Constitution. She's been talking about responsibility of political parties. She's been talking about the responsibility of the media, which is clearly stated out in the Constitution. She's also been talking about social media, the cyberspace, and how well we can use it. This actually brings back the conversation about political funding. Of course, we are in an election year. I want to put that question to you, Dr. Abuskara. What do we need to do as far as the Constitution is concerned regarding the funding of political party activities?
The political season is truly...
Summarize some of the points that my good friend Martin Pevo made, which is that there are a number of issues. You can categorize them into major groups, and those that will change the paradigm to allow other changes to become more feasible. And those that will change the paradigm are the ones related to how we elect our leaders and the issues of governance, and also the check systems in governance. If you don't do that, you will not get the others, because the people who are supposed to change those are the very people who are reinforcing the system we have now. So if you want to cross a river, first you must take the boat before you can talk about the things you will find on the other side. So we have to prioritize these changes to give us those that will allow us to change the system, the political system, and elect those people who will then make the remaining changes possible. But if we are asking the very people who are reinforcing the current system, then you will not get the change. So we have to be logical in our approach. But coming back to the issue of election financing, it is true that if you just look at election financing since 1992 up till now, the amounts we need for an election have increased exponentially beyond the scope of individuals and even beyond the scope of political parties. So much that they have to prepare in advance, either from looting the public purse to prepare for the election, or from going and in advance giving, confirmation that certain contracts will be available if they win power, and then they are given the money to come and contest. So these situations cannot lead to a democracy that works for the people. What it leads to is a system of elite capture, which is what we have now, where two dominant groups have formed under political elite that through the public purse have now captured the power. Now, this has also shown people who are not necessarily politicians that, well, if we have money, we can also capture the power. If it is about money, let everybody go and find their money and come and capture the power. And this is basically what the NCC woman was warning us against. Because we've seen in other countries, for example, in Latin America, where the drug barons, etc., and, crime bosses have organized their own parties and come through those parties to capture the political system in such a way that, their business just becomes a norm, to an extent where you have to have the whole American government to send in military and fight, use their own army to fight them in order to restore some sense of semblance. So if you're going to follow the money, definitely you are going to go off path and lose course, because that path is not in the national interest and it's not about empowering ordinary people. That means that you have to have some regulations. Now, the issue here is, if government is not providing a certain minimum amount of money to enable people who qualify for party politics to compete, then they leave the door open for people to get the money from wherever they want to get and however much they want to get to contest. And this is why the issue of government funding for political parties is relevant. It's not because you want to give money to the political parties, no. It is because by doing that, you then put yourself in a stronger position to say, well, you only need this much to prepare for constituency elections, and you only need this much to prepare for, presidential elections. So beyond this, we need to explain where it has come from. Or you can put a ban to say that you cannot spend more than this much. So that would mean that at this nascent stage of our democracy, where we are evolving, we can allow the growth across the spectrum to have greater inclusion, rather than at a very early stage of our development to have a very narrow base of two pillars that come up and prevent any other pillars from touching the roof. A house has never stood on only two pillars. You have to have multiple pillars to hold the roof. And if we carry on in the current tradition that we have, we are going to narrow the base for political options, and it will be only amongst a certain group of people. And even within those groups of people, they themselves are now beginning to see that it is eliminating some of them who are supposedly amongst the political elite because of money issues. And that is where now, even in the laws concerning election of people in parties, you have to be fair. You cannot have an electoral system where when it comes to parties, everything goes. And we want to now impose law and order when it comes to national elections. No, it must start from within the parties. Because if they have already disobeyed party rules, used money to get whoever they want, then the choice that you have to make at a national level is already set. So these are the things that we need to look at closely. We're not saying you want to take away the freedoms of people to elect who they want or form political parties. We're simply saying that we have now seen our own predisposition to the law. We take full advantage and exceed its limits. So in that case, we need to change the system to prevent ourselves and limit ourselves to staying within the boundaries and ensure that we do not have these excessive kind of behavior, this willful kind of behavior, where I can say that, look, I want Martin Paywood to be president, and I'll make sure I go around all the party rules to get him to be president, to be a flag bearer. And then I'll plan an election in which Martin Pevu can become the president. That's not how democracy works.
Let
the people choose. Let the people choose.
Right. Let me wrap up with you, Mr. Pebu. And so one would have thought that, this matter would have been settled. We've had this conversation for quite some time now. But here we are again, having it all over again. The work of the Constitutional Review Commission is still gathering dust. We don't know what has become of it. Yet we're still having this conversation. What's the way forward?
Yes, Aisha, good that you've come back. Look at the report. That's the summary. It's crazy. Yes, so let's keep talking. Because you see, Aisha, these politicians, if you read Socrates' book, The Republic, the one written by Plato, and the Socrates in their dialogues, tell you that politicians are dirty. Politicians are all the same, mostly dishonest. Of course, Atamils is one of the exceptions that we all know, right? So, and because they are tough-skinned, they are not like you and I. So if we keep talking, they won't do it. So let's just keep talking. Aisha, tomorrow, if you invite me, and I'm sure if you invite Dr. Abuskara on this same topic, I'll be here. Let's keep talking. We're going to push them to make sure that these constitutional amendments are done. Yes, because so far it appears to me that apart from the economy, the next thing that will get voters interested will be constitutional reform, because we are all suffering. We are really, really, really suffering. And we've seen that the Constitution is enabled our leaders to do what they are doing. I'm sure the framers thought that we will get what? Good leaders. They never thought that we will get thieves, bad leaders like that, right? So now that we've experienced it and we've seen that the leaders are usually not that good, the best is that let's rewrite it in a form as to break the cheats charter. You know, the cheats charter, that their book, how they go about cheating us. So let's break that code. Let's break their rules in the new constitution.
I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time. Dr. Foster Abuskara is founder of the National Interest Movement, and lawyer Martin Pebu is a constitutional lawyer. I'm grateful that you were able to join the conversation. Well, as we prepare for elections ahead of next year's inauguration of a new president, President Akufo-Addo, who is in his last term, says he intends to ensure our democracy remains intact beyond his tenure.
Ghana is considered a beacon of democracy and stability in Africa. And the celebration of Constitution Day should inspire us, Ghanaians, even further to hold on to this enviable status. And it is therefore gratifying to note that the nation's adherence to democracy has not waned. We know that there are no quick fixes to the challenges confronting us. And as we have seen in recent times, democratic structures of governance are capable of accommodating the most difficult of circumstances. Fellow Ghanaians, democracies are grounded on viable elections. And this year, like we have done on 8 other preceding occasions, we will go to the polls to elect the president and my successor. No true Democrat can disregard the importance of elections and the sanctity of the ballot. It must thus be in our collective interest to ensure that the rules and regulations for the conduct of this year's elections are fair and transparent.
So what do Ghanaians want for, as far as the Constitution 1992 is concerned? My colleague Kenneth Jesse has been interacting with some of you.
The 1992 Constitution is the country's longest uninterrupted written constitution since independence. 32 years after that constitution was drafted. How well has it served the country? We're on the streets of Accra to find out from Ghanaians what they think about the 1992 Constitution.
Right now, dear, the Constitution is many, but we are not seeing any changes. There is no job for the youth. I mean, it's a whole lot. it seems like those in the parliament or those in the government, they are enjoying. And we that we are sitting back, we are suffering. Maybe you can imagine one minister having 6 cars. And even the 6 cars too, government is fueling them. Even their house, they are not paying electricity bill. It will all go and come, then it will come and bill as we will pay everything. I mean, we are suffering. So I think the government should cut most of the costs. I mean, the traveling and the aspects. Some people can go on vacation. If they are going to, it's on first class plane. It's not economy or anything. So the government should cut the cost so that we the youth in Ghana here, we can also have a lot of jobs. We need jobs. We need jobs.
It really needs to be amended because the system is different now. And I think now nobody kind of checks anybody. So these are our leaders, the president, MPs or other political gurus. Nobody checks them. They do whatever they want. Even like there's no system, even our rent and stuff. Nobody checks anybody. Anybody can just build and give it any price at all they want.
Let's now talk politics. And President Akufo-Addo says 3 years after the 2020 elections, he's still awaiting a congratulatory message from his main opponent, John Dramani Mahama, on his hard-fought victory. The president, while addressing the National Constitution Day, emphasized the importance of a gracious acknowledgement in the spirit of democracy.
There should be no lingering doubt about the legitimacy of the election. And the winning candidates on the conclusion of the process should receive the unalloyed support of all. That is how we can strengthen our democracy and the peace and stability of our nation. On a lighter note, 3 years on, I'm still waiting for my main opponent in the 2020 elections to congratulate me on my victory. I swore an oath on 7th January 2017, and again, 4 years later on 7th January 2021, to be faithful and true to the Republic of Ghana and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. I shall continue to do just that.
But John Mahama's camp is not enthused about congratulating the president. Spokesperson Felix Kwachufuso believes he doesn't deserve it, and this is why he says so.
Why would he, in this day and age, at this twilight of his tenure as president, be demanding congratulations for elections that were held several years ago? And in any event, why would President Akufo-Addo expect to be congratulated when he clearly procured that victory through bloody means? As I speak to you, 8 Ghanaians who merely stepped out to observe these elections were gunned down in cold blood by rogue elements enlisted into the Ghana Armed Forces by President Akufo-Addo and his government. So now, not a whimper has been heard from him in terms of what is being done to seek justice for those who lost their lives. It would have been useful for him to have seized the opportunity of this address to update Ghanaians on what he was doing. If you shed blood to win elections, why should anybody congratulate you? Congratulations are reserved for those who play fairly, who play by the book, and win fairly. President Akufo-Addo does not fall into that category. So Ghanaians are not interested in this pursuit of vanity by President Akufo-Addo. He should focus on the important things that affect the lives of everybody in this country.
On JoyNews desk, we'll be back with business.
Hello, welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is confident an agreement will be reached with official creditors over restructuring of Ghana's debt. He therefore expects Ghana to receive $1.15 billion in funding from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank by the end of February. The bilateral creditors, according to Bloomberg, are nearing agreement on the terms of debt restructuring. An agreement will enable the IMF Executive Board to meet to review Ghana's performance under a program that started in May last year and to approve a disbursement of $600 million, the second tranche of the $3 billion bailout. Associate Professor of Finance at the Andrews University in the U.S., Williams Wipra, has been telling Joy Business why an agreement on a cut-off date for debt restructuring is crucial.
If the March 2020 is accepted, it means that loans that were granted after March 2020 will not be part of the restructuring. This will not augur well for government because government want to be able to capture most of the loans that were granted. And so that's why the position on December 31st, 2022 is probably will be more preferred so that it will give a full picture of the entire external debt position. That is around the 29 billion or so US dollars. So the savings, each country is taking a position and they are looking at their savings that they can get out of this particular transaction. That is why it become a bone of contention. Remember, the Chinese will want all their not to lose too much. So they, and also knowing that they are not classified, they are not part of the World 20 in their agenda for that debt relief. They don't want their loans to be classified as such. So that is why we've seen the two positions being made at the moment.
Now, interest rates fell once again with an anticipated ease in December 2023 inflation. According to auction results by the Bank of Ghana, demand for Treasury bills surged. Here's more in this report.
The 91-day bill eased to 29.19% from 29.24% the previous week. The 182-day bill also went down by 14 basis points to 31.74%. Again, the 364-day bill retreated to 32.34% from 32.48% previously. With the Ghana Statistical Service set to announce December 2023 inflation on Wednesday, January 10, 2024, it is likely interest rates will go down further next week. Meanwhile, the government got 15.24% more than the targeted amount of 2.837 billion cedis. The majority of the bids came from the 91-day bill. 2.143 billion cedis that were tendered were all accepted. It was followed by the 182-day bill, in which 595.72 million cedis were tendered. All the bids were accepted. For the 364-day bill, 484.22 million cedis of the bids were tendered. The uptake was 479.43 million cedis.
And that's it for the segment. The news continues after the break.
And that's how I wrap up the bulletin this morning. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Log on to myjoyonline.com. There's more of the news and updates of all the developing stories. See you again at 12.